idea for the show.
I still don't know what the idea is.
It's about nothing.
Right.
Everybody's doing something. We'll do nothing.
They say, what's your show about? I say nothing.
There you go.
I think you may have something here.
Cross Coast Bias presents the League About Nothing podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We have our Week 11 recap for you, featuring such high points as a Cam Akers and Desmond Ridder trade. Let's jump right in and start there. Al, how are you tonight?
Is that really where we have to start?
That is exactly where we have to start. It was our only trade. We had one trade as a league this week.
You got to draw the viewers in.
Listen, anyone who's coming back for this podcast knows what they are getting when they show up.
Desmond Ridder for Cam Akers analysis.
Cam Akers and Desmond Ridder.
All right, let's get into it.
Yeah, so this was our only trade in the league this past week, where Mel acquired Cam Akers and Big acquired Desmond Ridder. We know that Big has long been a Desmond Ridder fan. I'll be honest, I was with him on that Desmond Ridder is a value from a draft standpoint bandwagon when he came into the league.
Until he started going in the late first round.
Yeah, no, that was he started off in like the mid third that year, and that was a really great value. And then he just slowly crept up, and you know, that happens with quarterbacks in super flex leagues. We all know that. But we're far removed from that. Desmond Ridder has been bouncing from practice squad to practice squad. He's now, for those of you not paying attention, with Las Vegas.
Right. And they've already announced that Gardner Minshew will continue to be the starting quarterback. I don't think that either of them is a good option. I think that's the biggest problem.
No, that's a fair point. Neither one of them is likely to suddenly turn into a franchise guy at this point.
I don't think either of these guys are saving Antonio Pierce's job.
I don't think so either, but if I was Pierce, I think I've seen enough Minshew that I know he's not it. Let's throw Ridder out there and see if maybe he was being held back by Arthur Smith, as unlikely as that could be.
I don't think that was the problem.
No, I'm not saying I think that it was the problem either, but I think that it's a higher likelihood that that was the problem over the likelihood that Gardner Minshew suddenly turns into, I don't know, a top 20 quarterback.
Agree to disagree. I think it is far more likely that Gardner Minshew turns into a top 20 quarterback than Desmond Ridder is the answer.
Again, I think the likelihood of either one of these is below single digits. So don't hear what I'm not saying. But let's look at this and see what we think these two managers were trying to accomplish here.
Well, I know that Mel wanted his handcuff because Aaron Jones has been banged up, and Cam Akers has kind of emerged as the handcuff there in Minnesota since being picked up off waivers.
You know what the wildest part about this to me is? Cam Akers is only 25 years old.
That is impossible. There's no way that he's only 25. He's been in the league for 16 years.
Listen, I drafted Cam Akers in our league startup, and
that feels impossible.
I don't understand.
Did he come into the league at 14?
I guess it's him and Jason Tatum playing since they were 12. So Cam Akers has not really had a lot going on this year. He's had a couple of decent games. I think those were not when he was with the Vikings, however. You said it's a handcuff trade, and I don't know, with the possibility that Ridder's going to start, maybe Big wanted just that extra quarterback depth, because as we've discussed lately, the trade market seems to have dried up specifically at the quarterback position.
Right, it's a bit strangled currently,
until someone talks you out of Tua.
Suddenly I'm flush with quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's true.
After spending the entire season with none, now that I'm basically out of the playoff race, suddenly I'm flush with quarterback talent.
I don't know if Ridder will start at any point, but if he does, it's helpful to Big.
Right.
I don't think that Cam Akers was likely to see his starting lineup without an injury to Jones, and even then, maybe
seems
not.
unlikely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this trade made a lot of sense for both sides. We can laugh about the players involved, but really it made a lot of sense for both of the end of their benches.
Yep. So that is our only trade. I've said the last couple of weeks we need to do better. I guess we don't. I don't know. just just keep going at this slow pace. I think we've reached a saturation point where a lot of the managers who are in don't want to spend anymore, even if they have more available to spend. And I could speak for myself where I don't really want to sell anymore.
I think that's the bigger problem is that there's nobody selling at the moment.
I think a few of us who were out of it from the beginning have sold off the pieces we want to sell off.
Right.
And the folks who are on that fringe are still a little bit tentative to sell some pieces.
Right. Well, we still have 4 teams fighting for the last playoff spot. None of them want to sell when there's still a chance that they could make the playoffs, especially when most of them have already spent capital buying into this year to try to make the playoffs. So we may not see any major buys until the playoffs start at this point.
It's possible. Yeah. I think, as we go forward, we will see more clarity, but if the 4 of you vying for that last spot stay this close record wise, maybe we won't get any clarity until, like you said, the elimination.
Right. Record and points. We'll look at that when we look at the playoff odds, but it's very tight. Continues to be.
All right, let's take a look at waivers. Please stop picking up Dante Pettis. You're embarrassing us all. All right, that's the end of waivers.
I picked him up and dropped him, okay?
Yep. Well, thankfully, there was really no reason for you to pick him up in the first place.
I'm trying to get him trending on Sleeper's most added players list.
It's going to be tough to do. Maybe if you were in more leagues, you could handle that.
I can't just single-handedly drop him and add him every day.
I don't know if it counts. I think it's I think the count is leagues, not number of ad drops. But you can give it a go. We had no waivers worth discussing in case that wasn't clear by me yelling about Dante Pettis. So, with waivers and trades taken care of, let's take a look at the injuries. I got to say, this is 2 weeks in a row now where thankfully there were not a ton of fantasy relevant injuries, and you like to see it. It's always nice when we don't have guys getting hurt.
Well, yeah, there's no one left to get injured. They're all already injured.
No, I don't think that's accurate, but well, let's take a quick look. We had Darnell Mooney left with a hamstring injury and didn't return. He had been put on the injury report late in the week with an Achilles injury. So I guess this is unrelated, but it seems like maybe it could have been, hey, he was compensating for the Achilles and hurt the hamstring.
Yeah, we don't know because by the time he got hurt, they were already being blown out by the Broncos. So it's possible that it was just kind of precautionary, like, hey, we're going to pull the starters anyway. No reason to risk him back out there. They're also on bye next week, so we're really not going to get any information for probably a couple weeks.
Yeah, they don't have to release any injury updates over that bye week. They did, as a team, announce that they don't consider it serious. But I mean, that's vague language if I've ever heard it.
Right.
Right. Another wide receiver injury. Gabe Davis unfortunately tore his meniscus. He is done for the year.
Yes, this one is serious.
That is serious. And also they were getting blown out worse than Atlanta was getting blown out.
Right.
So even if it hadn't been serious, you might not have seen him anyways.
Yeah, this one, unfortunately, is going to cost him the rest of his first year in Jacksonville. Hasn't been going well for anyone on this team this year. Not. And I think they'll probably have a new coach next year, and probably GM,
they're gonna have a new coach next week.
Potentially after this week, before this week is up, because they are on bye, and that is the best time to fire your coach and GM during the season.
Change will be coming.
It's not going well
for sure.
It's not going well in Jacksonville.
No, all right. Speaking of other places where it is not going well, both running backs in Vegas got hurt this week. Both left the game, did not return. Madison hurt his ankle, and Zamir White hurt his quad.
They already have the worst running game in the league, and now they've lost both of their run, main running backs.
Zamir White
Mir
is
Abdullah was
bad,
the
too.
only healthy running back left on the roster.
Yeah, and he plays special teams as much as he plays actual running back these days.
Right. We may finally see your boy Dylan Laub this week,
Yeah,
New Hampshire's own.
it's about time.
Well, he played one snap earlier the year and lost a fumble.
All right. Other running back injuries. Tajay Spears got a concussion. He's in the concussion protocol. We'll know more when we know more.
Still have not got my brain injury certificate yet, so
All right. You keep us updated. You
not
let us
much
know.
to not much to add to that.
And we can say the exact same thing, copy paste for Jake Ferguson, who got injured Monday night. He is also in the concussion protocol. It
And
does not seem like he's going to be cleared for this week.
He's got one less day to clear the protocol, which means he's that much more unlikely to clear it.
It was not a great game for Dallas in general, but
Not a great season for Dallas in
no,
general.
it's been a very disappointing year for Dallas. But
Speaking of coaches that may get fired at any moment. Although Jara did come out and say he doesn't think that McCarthy has lost the locker room. So that's
okay.
that's very important. Don't worry about what what the players were saying to the press.
Jerry is not a reliable source. What I was gonna say though about Ferguson, about Dallas, it was a disappointing night for them, but their tight ends had a pretty good night in Ferguson's absence. Schoonmaker caught 6 of 10 targets for 56 yards. So the position was productive there, even if the player was not.
Yep, they got both tight ends heavily involved. Spanford and Schoonmaker both played like 40 plus snaps.
Yeah. Well, they had to throw a lot, you know.
Right, but are those the guys that you want out there when you have to throw a lot?
An excellent question. Yeah,
I guess they don't.
4 for 42. Ferguson had one catch for 11 yards. So the tight end position went over 100 yards for Dallas, even with Ferguson going out.
Yeah, Cooper Rush seems to target the tight ends and the running backs a little bit more than Dak would.
I wonder why. All right.
Well, with that receiving core, I understand.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb and although who was it? Was it Turpin that had the long touchdown?
Right. Caught a little slant, took it 65 yards to the house.
Slant boy. All right.
Yeah. Not great. He's a kick returner.
No. Yeah. That's not who you expect to be your, I don't know about leading or best receiver, but one of your leading receivers.
It's fine. They traded for Jonathan Mingo.
Only paid a 4th round pick and then some. Let's move on to our matchups for the week. We had a decent week. We had a league median score of 206.56. So pretty good scores this week. Not as crazy as we've seen, but above the, 178 or whatever it was we had last week.
Yeah, definitely an improvement.
For some reason, Sleeper still does not let me look back and see them. I know Criddle went and did the math for us, so I'm going to go write all that down and put it somewhere safe, but I have not done that yet. Anyway, our leading scorer this week, my favorite phrase, stop me if you've heard this one before, it was big again.
Shocking.
Put up a 250.51. He beat Criddle, who put up a 209.27. This is 2 teams over the median. So Criddle splits 1-1 on the week. Big gets the 2 wins.
It's about the best you can hope for when you're playing big.
Yeah, no kidding. So this moves Big to a record of 20-2 and Criddle to 11-11. Big remains in first place.
And Criddle stays alive.
And Criddle stays even with 2 of the other 3 teams vying for the last playoff spot. Seriously, would one of you start winning or losing? For Big, 36 points for Joe Mixon, 34 points for T. Higgins. Solid day from Aaron Rodgers at 15.56. Anything standing out to you over here?
Yeah, he scored 250 points without any tight ends.
Yeah. The tight end scores. A 0 from Mike Gesicki, just like we all thought. And Kenny Yeboah, his tight end, 1 with an 8.85. What is going on? He put up
only
250 points with a 0 in his lineup from what is one of the more important positions. I don't understand.
Kenny Yeboah ran 1 pass route in this game.
It's amazing.
And scored 8.85 points.
Oy, oy, oy.
1 pass route.
6% snap share.
Yeah, he was in for 3 snaps,
That
ran 1
reminds
route,
me.
caught a touchdown.
You know what I haven't done yet? I haven't done my Mercedes Lewis to catch a touchdown yet this year. I'm going to have to look at the matchups the next couple of weeks.
I got bad news because they have a new offensive coordinator, and he only plays Cole Kmet.
That's way smarter than anything they were doing before. We discussed that earlier.
The Gerald Everett saga is finally put to bed.
Our long
because
national nightmare has ended.
His coordinator has been fired.
It's fair. All right. For Criddle's team, 35 points from Saquon Barkley. Man, that dude is so talented.
Yeah, imagine having a running back like that on your team.
He was at like 73 yards with like 2 minutes to go in the game and scored 2 touchdowns and had another like 70 yards after that.
He's good.
Wild. Will Dissly, 22 points. Dallas Goedert, 15 points. Help him get over the median. Doesn't quite catch him up to what Big was doing.
Right. He got enough to make it over the median. So at least he salvaged 1 win on this week. Kept himself alive in the playoff race. That's all that matters at this point.
Yeah. And his running backs continue to just carry him along. He's got McCaffrey back now, put up 16 points. Montgomery, 2 touchdowns, 26 points. He's in decent shape.
Yep, this is kind of what we expected when the season started. You know, we figured he'd be carried by his running backs, and it's finally coming to fruition for him. Better late than never, I guess.
Yeah. Our next highest scoring team was the no longer hottest team in the league, Judd, who put up a 239.41. He beat Benign Rug, who put up a 131.87. 239, almost 240 points from Judd is a very impressive week. Joe Burrow has been playing out of his mind. He put up 31 points for Judd.
Yeah, it's because the defense can't stop anybody and have to score 15 times a game if they want to get close.
It's that defense is just letting him down week after week. And not just him, like the whole offense, obviously, the whole team. But it's sort of disappointing to see because I really enjoy watching that offense and I would like them to stay relevant. And what are they now? 4-7 or something like that. And they're rapidly losing any hope of making the playoffs.
Yep. Yeah, they're quickly falling out of the playoff picture here.
Yeah. But Judd's team here, Joe Burrow, 30 points. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 45 points. But that wasn't even the best of it. Your guy, Taysom Hill, 48.77 points.
About time that the Saints find a head coach who can unlock the weapon that is Taysom Hill.
Oh, man. This is just
would have
like...
had even more. He threw an interception and he lost a fumble.
Yeah,
this would have been a 50-plus pointer.
Yeah, the stat line is wild. 1 of 2 completions for 18 yards and a pick. 7 carries, 138 yards, and 3 touchdowns. What? 1 rushing first down. 8 catches on 10 targets for 50 yards. Somehow only 2 first downs and 1 fumble lost.
So this is what's happened this
2
year.
2 turnovers, 3 touchdowns, 1 pass.
They have
partridge
no
in a pear tree. Like, what the hell is happening here?
The Saints have no backup running backs. So he is the number 2 running back. They also have no pass catchers. So he's now the number 1 pass catcher as well. He just does everything.
He's not even good at that part of it.
He is the key to this offense. I've been saying this all year. He is the key to this offense.
Amon-Ra St. Brown put up 45 points and he's not the highest scorer in this lineup here. Which, how did Amon-Ra St. Brown put up 45 points when they scored like 3 rushing touchdowns in the first 10 minutes of that game? Why are you
Well,
throwing it so much? I don't understand.
they could do whatever they wanted against Jacksonville.
did.
It was 52-6. They scored on basically every
It
drive.
was 52-6, and the game was not that close.
Right. What did they have? 7 straight. The first 7 drives were touchdowns, all 60-plus yard drives.
Jacksonville is obviously in a bad way because they're missing their starting quarterback. Your starting quarterback could be anyone from any point in history. You're still losing that game. Anyway, also worth noting, Jameis Winston, 27 points as Judd's QB2. He had those huge games, which makes up for the fact that a couple of his flex spots were guys with 6.8 and 6.2 points. This could have been a much bigger week if he just had a few more okay scores in there.
Yeah, I mean, he had wide receiver 1 was 45 points. Wide receiver 2 was only 10 points.
Yeah. A little bit disappointing for the rest of the roster.
But it helps when you have 2 guys scoring over 45 points.
That it does. On the other side of things, Drake May continues to put up decent fantasy points, 18.73 this week. Brian Thomas, 16 points. Jordan Addison, 16 points. The young guys doing solid for Rugg, but not great.
Yep. Yeah, it's a little bit of a down week. He's been kind of coming on strong the last few weeks, but trailed off a little. There's a cap to how much he can actually score in a week without, running backs on the team.
We'll get to my roster eventually. Oh, you meant him. Yeah, that's true. All right, we're going to move on. Our next highest scoring team was Flinch. Flinch put up a 233.36, and he beat Flea, who put up a 203.84. So as we said before, the median was 206.56. So Flea was just a little bit under that median, little less than 3 points. So she unfortunately gets an 0-2 week, and Flinch, good for him, gets the 2-0.
Yeah, this was a tough matchup because these were the only 2 real of the top 5 teams that were playing each other. So the only kind of separation we've seen now was unfortunately in this matchup.
For Flinch, he had 3 30-point days. One from Breece Hall, one from Bo Nix, and one from Juwan Jennings. So that midseason trade where he picked up Jennings, Nix, and Mooney played out well this week for him.
Right. Go ahead, say it. You're welcome.
Listen, I think you should say you're welcome because you were the one who had to talk me into that one. No, it was a good trade for both teams. I'm looking forward to that extra first. I'm looking forward to Rice next year. But for right now,
when
Flinch
the Broncos play well, Flinch does well.
I was going to say Flinch must be thrilled because Bo Nix is, from a fantasy perspective and obviously this week from a real life perspective, absolutely balling out right now.
Right. And
Broncos fan has to be happy with this.
They demolished Atlanta. So we saw Nix and little Jordan Humphrey and Marvin Mims and Devon Vale. We saw all the Broncos in the lineup this week.
Yeah, pretty much every Bronco showed up. Most of them got in the end zone too. Mims and Humphrey both with touchdowns and about 15 points. Vale, I think, had the most catches. I don't, or most yards anyways. They spread the ball around a ton. You look at the box score afterwards and just everyone's got a catch.
Right. Yeah. It's not great for trying to pick out who you want to start every week. But
No.
when you're in a best ball, you don't have to worry about that.
That's
Just
true.
roster all of them.
Yep. Take what you get.
Seems like there's 1 or 2 that pops off pretty much every week. So
Yep. At tight end for Flinch, Schoonmaker, 17 points, filling in for, as we mentioned, Ferguson after he got hurt. It's a solid week right there.
yeah, nice little bonus.
On the other side of things, for Flea, just short this week, despite big games from Matthew Stafford, Tyreek Hill for the first time in a while with 22 points, and Sam Darnold, finally a good week after a few disappointing at 25 points.
Yeah, unfortunately, just below the median. She had a solid week, just not a great week. She needed a few more points. Some of these guys that didn't really.
Yeah, just
didn't really
one
come through.
more random touchdown or one more big catch or big run or something. She was right there on the edge, and we didn't quite get
Yeah.
what she needed.
She had a few guys that just Jonathan Taylor didn't do anything this week. Travis Etienne didn't do anything, even though Tank Bigsby was out.
Yeah.
Just a handful of guys that are
Yes.
normally lineup staples.
Spears left with the concussion before he had a chance to do anything. Gabe Davis left with his meniscus. There were options that you would expect. Kelsey had a disappointing week. That she had pieces that you normally expect to perform that just came up a little shy.
Right. So probably not a start of a trend.
No, probably not. But it could be a trend with Marquez Valdez-Scantling, another long touchdown.
That's all he does.
Literally, it's all he does because he doesn't do anything else.
He only catches 70-yard passes.
Yeah. All right. Our next highest scoring team was Mel's team. Mel put up a 215.17, and he beat Al's team. Al, you put up a 210.21. This is our second matchup with both teams over the median and only 5 points separating you two. Pretty close.
I finally wasn't in the lowest scoring matchup of the week.
I know. Let's try and work on that for next week, would you? All right. So the story of this one for your team, because it's right at the top of the matchup and I see it first, is Jared Goff put up 39 points, mostly because for whatever reason they decided they wanted to grind the Jaguars into the dust and keep throwing up six or seven scores.
Dan Campbell wants Doug Peterson fired.
I love it. Dan Campbell, keep doing what you're doing, man. This is great. I enjoy seeing teams run up the score unnecessarily sometimes.
Right. Stop them.
Yeah.
You don't like it? Stop them.
All right. So to pair with your Jared Goff 40-point game, you got 20 from Jahmyr Gibbs because he had 11 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown. 20, almost 28 points from David Njoku because apparently all Jameis Winston does is chuck the ball every time he drops back.
Thank God for Jameis Winston.
And welcome back Anthony Richardson, 27.33.
Yeah, pretty good for a tight end.
God damn it. Not even the starting tight end.
This is how bad the Jets defense is right now. They are down so bad. They made Anthony Richardson look like a functional NFL quarterback.
Yeah, he completed 2/3 of his passes for 272 yards.
Passes.
Yeah.
He completed over 50% of his passes for, I believe, the first time in his career.
That sounds wrong, but I don't know enough about his career to dispute it. He looked a lot better, and he was certainly more decisive running as well. Trucked that dude going into the end zone. That was great.
Yeah, he looked pretty untackleable around the goal line, which is kind of what we thought we would get from him, considering he's a monster of a man.
Well, we'll see if it's a sign of things to come or a one-week fluke, but he looked good.
He also didn't sub himself out, so progress.
Yeah.
Learning from mistakes. It's good to see. Growth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Certainly is better than it was. All right, so let's go take a look at Mel's team because Mel did win this matchup. Again, he beat you by 5 points. He had 25 from Josh Allen, 30 from Cooper Kupp, 28 from Jamar Chase, 25 from Zach Ertz, and 22 from Noah Gray. I don't think at any point leading up to this, we really expected to see 47 points from Ertz and Gray.
This is why Travis Kelce had a down game, because all the touchdowns went to Noah Gray.
Yeah. Yeah, he only had 23 yards, 4 catches, but 2 touchdowns. And the other 2 catches were first downs. So solid points right there. Geno Smith, his QB2, only 13 points. But really, it was those big days that he got from those guys. There was, some other decent scores in there. Swift had 16, AJ Brown 15, Demario Douglas 13. But it was really those big guys getting the 30-point days that carried him.
Right. It wasn't a wonderful week from either of us. We both had a lot of single-digit scores in here in the flex range.
Yeah, flex range in York, running back 2, Jordan Mason at a 1.55.
Right. It wasn't a wonderful week, but
some strange things this week. Like, you don't usually see guys who have a 1.55 in the starting lineup clear the median, and we never see guys with zeros in the lineup having the top score of the week. This is just an odd week.
Very boom bust this week.
Yeah. So that was a good matchup right there between you and Mel. A little bit of a change since you guys met in the finals last year. A bit of a lower scoring affair this time around. Our next highest scoring team was my team. I put up a 203.77, and I beat Mr. Good News, who put up a 53.8. Well, we really don't need to get very much into this. I just missed out on the median. Mr. Good News continues to do what he's doing. He got 19 points from Cavante Turpin because he took one to the house. The rest of his team, I think, had a high score of 5.2 from John Bates, who was on my roster for like 5 years, but Anyway, oh no, I lied. It was Justin Watson who had a 5.6.
Who was also on your roster for a long time.
He's been on like everyone's roster. He's made the rounds on the waiver wire. I somehow put up 200 points. I'm not entirely sure how that happened, other than the fact that Brock Bowers is the greatest player to ever play in the NFL.
He's almost as good as Taysom Hill.
How dare you?
He only had 45 points.
Though, Bowers, 13 catches for 126 yards and a touchdown, and 9 of those catches went for first downs. Man is a machine.
He is everything that we thought he would be and more.
I am thrilled.
Right. He probably should have gone 101. I'm pretty sure if we redrafted today, he would go 101 comfortably.
I don't know. It's still a super flex. Daniels.
I don't care. He's just scored 45 points this week from the tight end position. He's scoring more than quarterbacks. He's the number 1 pick.
He's special. That's for sure. The real question, if we redrafted, which we should discuss this in depth at some point, is where does Bo Nix go?
Higher than he went.
Well, obviously. Yeah, I took him at 12 in our draft. I don't know where he'd go now, but I'm guessing middle of the first.
Higher than 12.
Higher than 12. All right. Good games from Puka Nacua and JSN. I don't know. We don't need to discuss anything else on my team. I'm not going anywhere.
Pretty good week for having no running backs.
Yeah. No running backs.
Craig Reynolds.
Almost
and
literally. Hassan Haskins, my RB2 at 0.1.
He had
2 carries for 1 yard, and he made the lineup, folks. All right. Let's please move on.
Okay.
Our next highest scoring team was Georgia Mike. Georgia Mike put up a 198.59. He beat JMC, who put up a 176.56. Both of these teams, unfortunately for them, under the median score. Georgia Mike does manage the 1-1 split on the strength of winning the matchup.
Yep, this is a big matchup for the fight for the 6th playoff spot. Georgia Mike kind of keeps pace with the other teams, and JMC now falls a couple games behind with only a couple weeks left.
Yep, he does. I haven't been since the first matchup giving the records, but I'm going to give them here. Georgia Mike goes to 11-11 after this. JMC goes to 9-13.
Yeah, it was nice to see a bounce back week from Caleb Williams, especially now that Georgia Mike is basically down to only Caleb Williams at quarterback after making a few moves to solidify that room. It's basically just back down to Caleb now with Daniel Jones out of a job and Lawrence looking like he may miss significant time.
Yeah. Maybe there are trades to be made there. I don't know if Georgia Mike is looking to do that or not, but
he tried. He traded for Mac Jones. And that has not worked out.
Yeah, well, Mac Jones was on a team who lost by 50 points this week. So,
I mean, he may have had something to do with that.
Just a bit. Although, honestly, only 1 interception. Like, it could have been a lot worse. Only took 1 sack as well.
Yeah, he's not good.
No, he's not. All right. Interesting thing here. We've talked a lot of these teams had single-digit players in their lineups all over the place. Georgia Mike did not. Every single player in his lineup, double digits. And in fact, his flex spots, 13.8 and 13.1. It was just that he didn't have a ton of boom weeks.
Yep.
Only 21 points from Chase Brown, and what did I see? 22 points from Lad McConkey.
25 from JMO. That was his high score.
Yeah, there's not those big 30 point, 40 point production games, and that's what cost him the median score this week, unfortunately.
Yep.
On the other side of things, JMC 176 isn't a bad score, but it's almost never going to get you over that median.
Yeah, he just didn't get enough this week. He continues to be hamstrung by his lack of running backs and usually tight end, but not this week. Jonu's been on fire recently. 34 points this week, 100 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Man, someone should trade for him.
I don't think he wants to trade him at this point.
No, probably not. He's been the best tight end on his team for 2 years now.
Right. He needs tight ends, and Jonnu Smith is scoring a lot of points. I don't think there's any reason for him to trade him at this point. He wants to be a competitive team. He's still fighting for that last spot. And obviously he's still hoping to be a competitive team next year.
Yeah. Again, there's no reason to just trade a guy unless you're getting something that's worth more to your team than that guy is worth. Right. And at this point, I don't know that that's likely.
Yeah, tight end, not the easiest position to replace in this league and format.
No. All right. Anything else you want to touch on here? You mentioned DJ Moore actually had a decent game for the first time in a while.
Right. Well, that's tied to the Caleb bounce back. They fired their offensive coordinator, and the offense looked much better. They nearly pulled off the upset against Green Bay. They were a blocked field goal away.
I have a question for you. Is Quentin Johnston good?
I don't think he's as bad as he was last year.
Well, obviously he's having a significantly better year.
A lot of that is kind of propped up by touchdown. He's not been overly productive outside of probably unsustainable touchdown rate, but they're using him.
He has 6 touchdowns on the year. That's not crazy.
How many receptions does he have?
22.
All right. Well, that seems a little high.
Percentage wise for his catches, yes, but having 6 touchdowns through whatever week we are, 11, isn't like an insane rate.
They're using him in a way that maximizes his skill set much better than the previous coaching staff, which drafted him in the first round. So that makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah. Obviously, when you draft a guy, you can't have a plan in place for him. You just have to let it come to you naturally.
So I'm not sure that he's going to live up to his, first round billing, but he seems to have carved out a real role in this ascending offense.
He was 2 catches for 48 yards and a touchdown this week, but he had 8 targets.
Yeah, the Chargers have been much more pass heavy than we ever expected, and even more so in the last month or so. They've become one of the most productive passing offenses.
Don't say we.
We, as in the general public.
Because I expected them to be more pass happy than I think the general consensus. And I didn't expect this, but I expected them to throw more than I think most people did.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when Greg Roman is your offensive coordinator. You expect about 12 passes a game.
All right. That wraps up the matchups. Pretty good week. That was exciting. I thought there was some interesting head-to-head matchups there where we see guys who have a decent chance to meet again in the playoffs.
Yep.
Or teams, I should say.
We're going to see some other big ones this week coming up.
I haven't looked ahead for the next schedule yet. I said I was going to, and I really have dropped the ball on that again. All right, I'm going to write it down now. I'm setting an alarm.
The biggest
next
one,
week we're having playoff preview stuff.
The biggest one is Georgia Mike against Criddle.
Oh yeah, that's very relevant right there.
Right. 2 teams that are lockstep fighting for that last spot. We'll have playoff implications next week.
Well,
still a couple weeks out, but
speaking of that last spot, let's jump into it. Let's do America's favorite segment, our Dynasty Daddy playoff predictor odds. We still have 5 teams with a greater than 99% chance to make the playoffs. We don't need to discuss them. I will name them, though. It's Big, Mel, Judd, Flinch, and Flea. Right now, it shows a 98% chance for Big to have that first round bye, 47% chance for Flinch, and 38% chance for Mel. going down to 16 for Judd.
Yeah,
So
he's got a 3-win lead and about 200-point lead. So
Yeah.
it's going to be tough to catch him at this point.
Every week that Big goes 2-0, it gets that much harder to catch him because you just, at this point, you're going to run out of time, even if he has a down week.
Yep.
All right. So that last playoff spot, we have 3 teams at 11-11. They are Criddle, Georgia Mike, and my co-host Al's team. Also alive for that last spot still is JMC.
Hanging in there against all odds.
At 9-13. So he's, a week out in terms of the current pace, but we got a few weeks left, so he's not dead yet, as they said in Monty Python. All right, so the percentage chance for these other teams, Criddle at 53%, Al at 28%, and Georgia Mike at 20%, which, adds up to 101%, but who's keeping track?
Georgia Mike is currently the highest scoring team on the season, if we're looking at point tiebreakers between the 3 of us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, between the 4 of us, really. He's got about a 10-point lead on Criddle and about a 40 to 50-point lead on my team. So even the points are pretty close.
Even that 40 to 50 points is not a large gap. That's less than one Taysom Hill.
Right, with 3 weeks to spare.
Yeah, 15 points a week gets you right back there, even. Like, that's easily doable if you're not getting 1.55 points from your RB2.
I'm just looking forward to one of us making the playoffs with a sub 500 record.
Yeah, I don't think that's likely. I think of the 4 of you, someone has to win some games here. I say of the 4 of you, you'll note that I did not give JMC's odds to make the playoffs. That's because Dynasty Daddy has decided JMC no longer has a chance. He's listed at less than 1%, along with myself, Rugg, and Mr. Good News.
That's not very nice. He's still
It's
alive.
not nice, and I'm not the one making it up. But that, I wouldn't say less than 1% chance, but I would say certainly in that, like, he's been at like 4% or so the last few weeks. I would say it's slipping away fast here.
Right. Mathematically, he's not been eliminated.
Yeah. Mathematically, I have been eliminated, and for some reason, Dynasty Daddy does list my team as the highest of those 4 teams, which makes no sense whatsoever. JMC is technically listed behind everyone. I don't understand that because Mr. Good News has 0 wins.
Yeah, I don't know the sorting.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't, the sorting doesn't matter. We all know that he has an actual chance, whereas the rest of us do not.
Right. I think this head-to-head matchup this upcoming week between Georgia Mike and Criddle will go a long way to determining who gets that playoff spot.
Seems likely. I mean, your team here also has a chance to make up ground because one of those guys is taking a loss. If you get over the median and get a win, you make up ground on one of them for sure, and maybe both of them.
Even though I play you this week, that still seems unlikely.
I mean, it seems likely that you'll get a win.
You almost outscored me this week, so we'll see.
Yes, but I mean, that was my best week on the season. So as we discussed earlier, that seems unlikely to repeat.
Are the Raiders on a bye this week again? Do they get 2 bye weeks? Not yet. All right.
Speaking of 2 bye weeks, I can't believe the NFL hasn't done that yet. Do you know how much more money they would make with just an extra bye week?
I don't know the exact number now.
They would make I don't know the exact number either, but think about it. You get an extra week,
a lot.
You would get an extra week of primetime games. Like, yes, there aren't more games, but you could put more into primetime. They don't have to pay the players anymore. They don't have to have any extra. Like, a bye week is something that's basically free for them to add. The players union isn't going to be like, whoa, we don't want more bye weeks. They'll be like, yeah, an extra bye week, that sounds great. An extra rest week, sure. I don't understand why this is a controversial thing that hasn't happened.
I look forward to the Super Bowl competing with March Madness.
Ooh, wow, there's a thought. Jeez.
Head to head, what is America watching? Super Bowl or the first round of March Madness?
That's not an actual question that you just asked.
It's coming. If we keep pushing stick 5 more bye weeks in there and we're in March.
America would watch a replay of Jaguars Lions over March Madness. All right. That brings us to the end of the Dynasty Daddy playoff predictor. Who's going to make the playoffs? Who's going to get the first round buys? Predictor odds.
This title is just getting more unruly by the week.
I don't know what you're talking about. That was perfectly cromulent.
You're just embiggening this title for no reason.
All right. That's going to do it for us here this week. We will be back next week. So we'll have a little bit more time to get into our quarterback scoring discussion then. And any other discussions that you guys think we should do in depth, let us know because we want some ideas. All right. That's going to finish it up for this week. We will catch everybody next time. But until then,
see you in the league chat.